Hey guys, let's talk about the first season of Being Mary Jane. This is a series that I really enjoyed. I found it very entertaining, and I found that the subject matter was very relevant and a current topic that I think is worthy of diving into. When this show first premiered, it was a made for TV movie that aired on BET. And with the success of it, it turned into a TV series. And they decided to do a 9 episode first season. And at first, I think it got a lot of comparisons to Scandal. And that's basically because there's a strong black female lead in the title role. And, because there are so few leading black females on TV, it's easy to go ahead and make that comparison. But it is not a comparison I think that needed to be made. I mean, yes, it is a black woman in the lead. She's strong, she's powerful, she's struggling through her personal, her professional, her family life, all that kind of stuff. But they're two completely different shows. And as much as I think they maybe the buzz was about Gabrielle Union being so strong in this role, which I think she was. I think that it deserves to be looked at as a show all on its own and not be compared to a show like Scandal. So this show, like I said, deals with the life of a woman who is a very successful TV talk show host. She is dealing with her personal life, her professional life, and her family life. And in the very first episode, which was about 90 minutes long, they threw a lot of curveballs at us. And one of the major storylines that we get throughout the season is the fact that she falls in love with this man, or she's in love with this man, and he's married. And of course, that is Andre. And she doesn't know this until she literally steps on his wedding ring, which fell out of the pants of his out of the pocket of his pants. And she confronts him, and she's angry, and she feels betrayed, and she does what you would do. You walk away from that relationship. However, that doesn't last very long. But in that very first episode, we see some amazing can I just say, amazing chemistry between her and Andre. And then, when she pushes him away and she tells him, to beat it, she ends up hooking up with her ex-boyfriend, who, of course, is one of the other major relationships that she has to deal with in this episode. And he is David. And, this is a relationship that she had a few years ago, and they obviously still have some feelings for one another. And in the first episode, he kind of comes to her house as like a booty call. And they end up hooking up, and it's very hot and steamy. And by the time he leaves, she steals his sperm. That's right, people. She takes the condom and she takes the sperm and she puts it in her fridge, or actually, I should say, in her freezer, and she locks it up for safekeeping. And when that first episode ended, I was like, what? I have to keep watching this show because I needed to know how it was going to end. And I think one of the things that I really appreciated about this show was that they didn't rush the awkwardness of her being in love with a married man. And I know that it's not something that we should celebrate. We absolutely not. But I think they did a good job in showing how difficult it is to just turn off your feelings, and how difficult it can be to try to walk away from something that you're so invested in. And it's not like she knew it. It's not like she pursued a married man. She fell in love with a man who lied and didn't tell her that she was married. So I think that, throughout the 9 episodes that aired, they did a really good job of stretching that out and showing, like, the in-depth conversations, or almost like the not really manipulation, but the back and forth, her texting him texting her, wanting to see each other even though they knew it was wrong, and then him having lengthy discussions with his wife after she finds out, and just the dynamic that happens within his family because he is married with 2 children, and how difficult that is for him to leave and commit to asking for a divorce. I mean, there were some definite awkward moments, like when her character, Mary Jane, confronts the wife in a store and tells her, like, did you know I was having an affair with your husband? It's like, So there were a lot of awkward conversations that were had, which were good. And there were a lot of awkward scenes in this episode. And they didn't shy away from the sex scenes, and they didn't shy away from just talking about things that I think married people go through, and what could perhaps lead to somebody cheating, whether you're not getting enough, spontaneity at home, or you're not getting just plain out enough sex, you're not getting enough variety, things like that, which I think sometimes people go, oh, whatever, but it plagues on a relationship. So I could appreciate that they went there with this show. Some of the things that I didn't really so much care for were like some of the members in her family, like the stuff that they were going through. But it's good that they showed just sort of how much of a provider that she's been for her family, and her family was pretty affluent. It's not like they were struggling. Like her parents lived in a nice home, they had nice jobs and stuff like that. Her mom was sick and was going through her own issues. She had like a junkie brother who was going through, he was basically in rehab, not really rehab, but he was like, he's a recovering drug addict, and he was going to meetings all the time, and he was living at home with his parents, and he was dealing with having to be a strong provider for his kids, and his daughter was pregnant, and the daughter was like already having her second child, and she's only 19, like, so it was sort of just showing the way the struggles in a family situation, and that not everybody's going to be successful. Some will be, some will struggle. So it was good to see that. Sometimes I felt some of the storylines dragged on a bit with that. But one of the really great scenes I could have appreciated with her and her younger sibling was when she was just about to give birth. And, she's talking about this man who's the father of her child. And he's not that nice. And he hasn't really been there for her. Hasn't really showed up for appointments. And she makes this comment about the baby being I think he's like Filipino or Mexican or something like that. And she's talking about how her babies will be beautiful and they'll have like pretty hair and like eyes. And it's like, I think that really speaks to the volume of Black women and some of the struggles that they go through, whether they're going to be too dark or they're going to have their hair's going to be too coarse, like, having to wear weaves all the time, like all those, struggles that young Black women go through, and that self-identity that they feel or the lack thereof. And so I thought that was one of the strongest conversations that Mary Jane and her younger sister had. And I really appreciated that conversation that they had, because I thought that was almost, it really spoke to a lot of the issues that her sister's been going through. But, some of the other stuff I was just kind of like, it was either here nor there for me. And then, of course, we saw her struggling with some stuff at work. One of her friends committed suicide, and she had to deal with that on her work end. Her boss, who I really enjoyed her character too, because I think it was nice to see these strong women in these powerful roles, but dealing with like their personal lives and why they have struggled because of it. She is separated from her husband, and their kids are dealing with her not being home all the time, and so I thought that it was good that they touched on all these different storylines within this series. Mary Jane is still single, and I think I believe in this show she's around 38, 37, 38, 39, in that age range, and just sort of, when she steals that sperm in that very first episode, it's like she wants to have a baby, and she wants it to be his, but she doesn't ask him for his permission. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it feels so desperate, but yet it speaks volumes to sort of the lack of opportunity that these women feel that they have in terms of finding the right guy for them, or a guy that won't lie to them, or a guy that, will be there through the good, the bad, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, we got to see some very interesting dynamics between her and Andre, and then her and David. And, he kind of bookmarked this series. We kind of saw him in 3 parts. We saw him at the very beginning. We saw him sort of in the middle when they were at this party, and then he tells her that he's dating this new woman. And, of course, it's one of those things where she's been dating some guy, but it's hard when you see that your ex really moving on with somebody who's probably in a relationship that he can talk about, where in her situation, she was dating a married guy, so she couldn't talk about it at all. And then he showed up in the last episode. So he kind of bookmarked this series, like, in 3 parts for us. And in the end, they had like this lengthy, because he confronts her. He finds out that she stole his sperm because one of her girlfriends blabbed. And he confronts her on it. And he literally says, all you had to do was ask me for a baby, and he probably would have given her one. But, they end up having this big argument, and it's sort of one of those things where it's like they're rehashing all the things that had gone wrong. And, sounds like she turned her back on him when he was sort of down and out, and she wasn't there for him, and blah, 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 blah. So, it showed the struggle with her desperately wanting to try to get back with him, because it's almost like that feeling of knowing somebody that you've known for a large part of your life and you know so well, so you don't really have to start all over with somebody new. So it's better to go back to somebody familiar. But he's moved on. He's dating some new girl, and then by the end of the episode, we see that they're actually expecting a child. So I thought that the complexities that this show brought to us were good. I thought that Gabrielle Union did a great job in this title role. I'm not usually a huge fan of Gabrielle Union, but I actually really enjoyed watching her in this series. I thought that she showed some very good, she showed a lot of depth. She showed, that angst that women are going through. She showed the desperation that some women are going through. She showed confidence. She showed, tenderness. Like she had a great range within this series. So I enjoyed all of that too. And I think by the end of it, we sort of get a closing on these two huge relationships that were going on in the season. She breaks up with the married guy. She actually goes to the wife and tells her that she should take him back. And we see that that actually happens by the end of the season, that the wife actually takes Andre back. And, it looks like David will go on with this new girlfriend and they'll have a child together. And Mary Jane is now free and single, and she can let go of all the baggage that she had and just move on. So I actually really enjoyed this series. Like I said, there were a few storylines that I just was kind of like, meh, I could do without that. But as a whole, I was very engaged in 90% of this show, and I really hope that it gets picked up for a second season. Let me know what you guys thought of this season, and leave a comment down below, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. But let me know what you thought. Like, did you think that her journey was a good journey? Like, I am actually glad that they didn't rush it, that they didn't have her date some guy, find out he was married, then be done with it by the third episode. Like, I'm glad that they spent the time to actually deal with it and show. There was this one episode where her brother called her an addict, and that she couldn't let this guy go even though she knew he was bad for her. And it's sort of like that, like this bad relationship was like a drug to her, and then she finally snapped out of it and realized that she deserves better. And it didn't hurt that, oh my goodness, he was fine, and so was David. But at the end of the day, it's like, who is going to make you the happiest and who's going to complement your life. And you shouldn't be ashamed and not be able to speak about the person that you love more than anything in the world, right? So good for this first season of Being Mary Jane. Good for BET for having a really good show on their programming. And we'll see if it gets picked up for a second season. All right, guys, that's been my review of Being Mary Jane. I'll see you next time.